Welcome the anointed ones. Some people study books, others study stars, but the most dangerous ones, they study you, because you made it without becoming them. There's a strange silence that follows your name lately, not out of peace, but paranoia. You're not paranoid. You're being observed, watched, analyzed like a mystery no one can decode. And here's a fact. According to psychological research, people who defy social expectations, especially those who rise after being counted out, tend to become unconscious objects of obsession. You didn't just rise, you glitched their reality. Now they want answers, because the truth is, you're not just on their mind, you're under their microscope. You weren't supposed to make it. Not without playing their games, not without licking their boots or swallowing your shine. But you did. You made it. With integrity intact, with truth in your eyes and fire in your steps. And now, they don't know whether to clap, confess, or clone you. They're studying your every move like your life's a Netflix docuseries titled How the Chosen One Beat the System. And surprise, there's no trailer, no script, no reruns. You are the spoiler. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't for the faint-hearted. It's for the ones who shattered ceilings, outlived sabotage, and still had the nerve to smile like they didn't come out of a war zone. Let's get into why they're secretly watching you, and why the fact that you made it is the very thing that's haunting them. Number one, they're not curious. They're confused by the exception you are. They're not watching you because they're impressed. They're watching you because they're confused. You didn't do what they expected. You didn't break, you didn't fold, you didn't beg. And somehow, without their help, without their approval, you still made it. That's what's messing with their heads. You weren't supposed to become anything more than the label they tried to stick on you. But you turned that label into fuel, and now they're studying you like a walking contradiction. It's not admiration, it's analysis. They're trying to make sense of you. You don't fit the patterns they're used to. You don't follow the emotional scripts they understand. You don't respond like other people who were mistreated, disrespected, or doubted. Instead, you grew. You got smarter, sharper, calmer. And that's what's got them uneasy. They can't figure out how someone who should have collapsed under pressure somehow leveled up instead. They've seen people talk a good game and crash the moment life hit back. They've seen folks pretend to be strong until real betrayal tested them. But you faced real storms. You didn't just survive, you evolved. You outgrew the very traps they thought would contain you. Now they're circling back, observing your every move, trying to study your mindset, your energy, even your silence. Because something about you doesn't add up. And that mystery is threatening everything they thought they knew about people like you. This is deeper than curiosity, it's disbelief. You're not supposed to still have that light in your eyes. You're not supposed to still be kind, focused, creative, and whole, but you are. And now they want to know how. How did you escape the mental prison they put you in? How did you climb out of the hole they dug for you without bitterness or baggage? They can't ask you directly, so instead, they watch. They're trying to figure out how someone like you exists. And the answer is simple. You were never built like them. You never needed to be accepted to be powerful. You never needed validation to be worthy. You made it. Not by copying the world, but by becoming exactly who you were born to be. And now? They're watching, trying to decode a blueprint they'll never understand. Number two, you did it without their blueprint. Now they want to reverse engineer your soul. You didn't follow their path. You didn't ask for their permission. You didn't copy their formula for success. And that's exactly why they're obsessed with you now. They're not inspired, they're bothered. Because you broke every rule they swore was necessary to rise. You didn't network your way to the top. You didn't trade your authenticity for acceptance. You didn't sell your soul for spotlight. You simply walked your own path and still made it. Now they want to reverse engineer what you've become. They want to study your story like it's a science experiment. Not to celebrate it, but to understand how someone who didn't do it their way still got the results they thought only they deserved. You're the glitch in their matrix. The exception to the system they worship. The fact that you didn't chase approval, but instead chose purpose and still succeeded, is blowing their minds. You're proof that the game is rigged, and still you found a way through it without playing dirty. You didn't just make it, you made it without becoming one of them. That's what's messing with their reality. They think success comes from being cold, fake, strategic, or manipulative. But you showed up with heart, humility, and divine timing, and now they don't know whether to envy you or interrogate you. They keep watching you because deep down they're trying to locate your power source. But they'll never find it in the places they're looking, because your strength didn't come from status. It came from spiritual alignment. You were guided, not groomed. You were chosen, not created by the crowd. And because they can't trace your rise back to their systems, their clubs, or their strategies, you've become a mystery they want to crack. They're used to formulas. But your journey wasn't a formula. It was a divine unfolding. It was messy, unscripted, full of things they would have never survived, and somehow you're still glowing. Now they want access. They want to analyze the moves you made, hoping they can copy what can't be duplicated. But you didn't come from a textbook. You came from the fire. You didn't win by playing their game. You won by walking away from it. And that's what they'll never be able to replicate. Number 3. Your trauma didn't cripple you. It sculpted you into a spiritual weapon. They thought the pain would take you out. They thought the trauma would leave you permanently damaged. They were sure that after everything you went through, betrayals, losses, lies, and emotional warfare, you'd either become bitter, broken, or both. But instead, you became sharper, smarter, wiser, stronger. You didn't crumble. You transformed. And that's exactly why you're being watched now. You didn't just survive the hits. You learned from them. You didn't numb out, you studied the wounds. You didn't deny the darkness, you faced it head on. And from that pain, you pulled out wisdom, discernment, and power. That's rare. Most people either shut down or lash out. You did neither. You went inward, cleaned house, did the inner work, and came out as a different kind of weapon, one that's silent, precise, and hard to predict. Now they can't stop studying you because they don't understand how someone can walk through hell and come out clear-minded, pure-hearted, and spiritually lethal. You're not dangerous because you're loud. You're dangerous because you're healed. Because you didn't let what happened to you make you cruel or numb. You transmuted it. You turned your pain into depth. You turned your scars into signals. You don't need revenge. You became the proof that their attack failed. And that's what eats them up the most. You didn't become small. You didn't conform. You didn't fall into the trap of becoming what hurt you. You rose, and you rose with clarity. Now you move differently. You see through people. You feel energy shift before anyone speaks. You sense motives before they're spoken. You became spiritually alert in ways that can't be taught. That's why they keep their eyes on you now. Because your growth exposed their games. Your healing made their manipulation ineffective. They can't use the same tactics anymore because you've evolved beyond reach. That level of inner power is something they never saw coming. And now, they study your calm, your confidence, your glow, not because they admire it, but because they don't know how you got it without becoming cold. But the truth is, you didn't just bounce back, you ascended. You didn't just recover. You unlocked something in you they'll never touch. Number 4. Your presence exposes their performance. You don't try to be deep. You don't try to be powerful. You just are. And that's exactly what makes people uncomfortable. You carry something that can't be faked. When you show up, the energy shifts. Not because you're loud or dramatic, but because your presence quietly demands truth. You don't force people to be real. They feel exposed in your presence and start fumbling with their own masks. That's the power you carry. Not forced attention, but undeniable alignment. You don't perform. You don't pretend. You don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. And that's where the tension begins. Because most people have spent so much time performing, acting confident, acting kind, acting happy, that they've forgotten what real feels like. Then you walk in. You're not putting on a show. But suddenly everyone else's performance starts to feel fake, even to them. People don't always know why they feel off around you, but they do. Something about you brings things to the surface, the lies they told themselves, the roles they've been playing, the truth they've been avoiding. Your spirit doesn't allow for pretense, and that's why they either gravitate toward you or pull back fast. It's not personal, it's spiritual. They're not responding to your personality. They're reacting to your frequency. They're watching you because you disrupt the environment just by being yourself. You're the reminder of what they gave up, what they buried, what they stopped believing in. You're the proof that authenticity is still possible in a world full of replicas. And it's not that you're trying to expose anyone, it just happens. Your integrity is so loud it makes their performance echo. Your light doesn't need a spotlight. It makes the spotlight feel unnecessary. That's why you're being studied. Not because you're trying to shine, but because your realness makes everything fake around you start to decay. You don't just inspire people. You make them question who they've been pretending to be. And not everyone's ready for that kind of confrontation. Number 5. You're a living receipt of what they couldn't kill. They threw everything at you. Lies, slander, manipulation, emotional traps, even calculated silence. And they were sure it would destroy you. They didn't just want to hurt you, they wanted to erase you. They wanted to ruin your reputation so badly that no one would ever believe in your light again. But here you are, still breathing, still rising, still glowing with a quiet strength that proves every word they spoke about you was a lie. You're not just a survivor, you're evidence. They can't spin it anymore. The same people who whispered that you were unstable, unworthy, or irrelevant now have to watch you thrive. They built an entire version of your story rooted in destruction, but you became the plot twist they never expected. Because you didn't just come back, you came back better. Your healing, your elevation, your peace, it's all documentation. Every step you take in your purpose is a receipt that says, this is what they tried to kill and failed. And that's what scares them. You're a walking contradiction to the narrative they tried to build. You're still kind, still talented, still focused, still chosen. You didn't turn bitter even though you had every reason to. You didn't get stuck in revenge mode even though they deserved it. You just kept evolving, and now your very existence holds them accountable. They don't want people to see you now because if they do, the lies won't stick anymore. Your life has become the proof. You didn't defend yourself with words. You let the fruit speak. They tried to bury you, but you became a seed. They tried to silence you, but your purpose started speaking louder than anything you could have said. You weren't just hard to break, you were impossible to erase. Now you walk with receipts, not to prove anything to them, but to remind yourself that no weapon formed against you ever stood a chance. You are what they feared would happen if you ever healed. You are what they tried to stop before it could fully form. And now all they can do is watch, because you made it, and every lie they told crumbles every time your truth walks into the room. Number 6. You're the spiritual anomaly they didn't prepare for. You don't operate like the rest, and deep down, they know it. There's something about you that doesn't quite align with the way this world expects people to move. You're not driven by ego, popularity, or status. You're driven by something deeper, something timeless. That's why you're being studied, not just watched out of curiosity, but monitored out of confusion. Because your existence challenges everything they thought they understood about power, identity, and purpose. You don't play by the rules because those rules were never designed for someone like you. You're not motivated by fear, greed, or competition. You're moved by inner knowing, by divine pull, by something ancient. You're not just here to break cycles. You're here to undo entire blueprints that kept generations locked in spiritual poverty. That's why you don't fit. That's why you feel misunderstood, even in rooms full of people. You weren't made for the system. They just hoped you'd forget that. You carry codes that weren't taught, only remembered. You move in frequencies most people can't hear, yet somehow feel when you enter the room. Your presence alone stirs up what's been sleeping in people for years. Not because you're flashy or loud, but because your soul speaks languages older than their logic. And that throws them off. You're the kind of anomaly that wasn't predicted and definitely not welcomed by the ones who benefit from everyone staying asleep. They tried to silence the part of your bloodline that rebelled. They tried to bury the wisdom that came before fear took over. But it rose in you. You're not just living your life. You're living for the ancestors who weren't allowed to speak, for the visionaries who died before they could be heard. That's why you can't be boxed in. That's why your thoughts are so different. You're connected to something much older than the trends of this time. Now they're watching you because they don't know what to call you. They can't categorize you. You're too grounded to be written off, too wise to be dismissed, and too real to be ignored. You're not here to fit in. You're here to disrupt, heal, and realign, and they never saw you coming. Number 7. Your movement is divine, not trendy. You don't move like the rest, and that's exactly what sets you apart. While everyone else is chasing relevance, clout, and applause, you're tuned into something they can't access. A higher instruction, a deeper knowing, a divine rhythm. You're not performing. You're not following trends to stay visible. You're not jumping on bandwagons to stay in the loop. You move when you're led, not when you're liked. And that right there is what baffles them. They've studied people who go viral. They understand how the algorithm works, how attention is bought, how clout can be crafted. But you're different. You're not clocking in for views. You're answering to a spiritual assignment. Your timing doesn't match the world's speed, and your silence speaks volumes that can't be muted by noise. You disappear when others would be posting, and somehow return stronger than before. That's what keeps their eyes glued to your every step. They don't understand how you stay relevant without screaming for attention. They don't get how you stay impactful without performing. But that's because your movement isn't rooted in performance, it's rooted in purpose. You move like someone who knows that divine timing will always outlast temporary fame, and that makes you unpredictable in a world addicted to patterns. They expect momentum to come with hype, but your momentum comes from obedience. They expect results to come from visibility, but your results come from alignment. You're not just walking through life, you're being guided through it. And because your source isn't public, they keep watching, trying to figure out where your power is coming from. But they'll never crack it, because what moves you can't be measured in likes, trends, or analytics. You're not trying to trend, you're trying to transcend. You're not here to ride waves, you are the wave, and they can't replicate what they can't comprehend. So instead they study you, hoping your stillness will somehow expose a formula. But you're not running a formula, you're walking a divine path, and no algorithm will ever predict your next move. Number 8. You are the unwritten manual they can't replicate. You weren't handed a playbook. No one gave you step-by-step instructions, a cheat code, or even a guide. You had to figure it out while stumbling through pain, rejection, and betrayal. You had to walk blind while others had mentors, shortcuts, and safety nets. And yet, you still made it. You created your path in the middle of chaos, and somehow it worked. Now they want to know how. They want to copy what you built. But they're missing one critical truth. You were never copying in the first place. Your success didn't come from a formula, it came from fire. From late nights, spent battling thoughts nobody knew about. From moments where quitting looked easier than breathing, but something inside wouldn't let you stop. You weren't building your life to impress anyone. You were surviving. And that survival forced you to become creative, intentional, and wise in ways that no classroom could ever teach. That's why they can't replicate you. Your blueprint is hidden in the storms you endured alone. They don't understand that what makes you powerful can't be packaged. You didn't just grow, you were forged. That means your strength came from pressure, your clarity came from confusion, and your peace came from fighting through war zones, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You didn't just win, you earned every inch of your glow. And now those who tried to undermine you are trying to duplicate you. They want your outcome without your process. They want your essence without your sacrifice. But what they don't realize is that you are the manual, and it was written in your soul, not on paper. There's no outline to follow, no shortcut to trace. You didn't rise by mimicking. You rose by becoming. And every part of you that's unteachable is what makes you unstoppable. You are the original in a world obsessed with replicas. The reason they can't clone your path is because it was custom built for someone with your scars, your strength, your vision. You weren't meant to be followed. You were meant to be understood. But only by those who have the depth to recognize that some manuals are written in spirit, not ink. Number 9. Your success wasn't achieved, it was unleashed. They thought they were ending you when they excluded you, sabotaged you, and pushed you to the edge. They thought you'd collapse when they cut you off. What they didn't know is that pushing you off the ladder didn't stop your rise. It activated your wings. You didn't climb like they did because you were never meant to follow their structure. You soared, and that's what they can't wrap their heads around. You didn't rise through privilege or approval. You didn't play the game or beg for a seat at the table. You were forced out, counted out, and overlooked. And still, you thrived. Because your success wasn't something that needed to be built from scratch. It was something buried under all the lies, fear, and limitations you were taught to carry. The moment you dropped those weights, everything shifted. You didn't become powerful. You uncovered the power that was already there. They keep looking at your life like you must have stumbled into favor or got lucky. But the truth is brutal. You earned it through pain, clarity, and decisions most people are too afraid to make. You said no to what looked safe but was toxic. You chose healing over revenge, growth over gossip, purpose over popularity. And in doing so, you stepped into a realm they were never trained to see. You accessed levels that don't come with instructions. Not because someone taught you, but because you dared to ask bigger questions. You cracked codes they didn't even know were real. While they were busy climbing status ladders and chasing approval, you were busy breaking generational chains and rewiring your mind. And when the system spit you out, you didn't die. You woke up. Now, they're watching. Not because they want to celebrate you, but because your very presence is confusing to them. You don't carry the bitterness they expected. You don't look like what you went through. And most importantly, you don't fit into the story they tried to write for you. You were never made to achieve like them. You were made to unleash. And that's what makes you dangerous. You're not what they expected. You're what they never saw coming. Number 10. Your peace is proof of your power. They were banking on your downfall, leaving permanent damage. They thought the betrayal would leave you angry and loud. They assumed the rejection would make you clingy and insecure. They expected the lies to turn you into someone bitter and unpredictable. But what they didn't see coming was your peace. That's what's messing with them the most. Not your glow-up, not your comeback, your peace. You're not bitter. You're not broken. You're not out here trying to clap back or prove anything. You're just still. And in a world that thrives on noise and performance, that stillness is unsettling. They thought if they took your name through the mud, your spirit would never recover. But instead of shrinking, you expanded. Instead of acting out, you went inward. And from that quiet place, you found something they don't understand, real power. Your peace says, I've healed in places you didn't even know were bleeding. Your peace says, I don't need revenge. I became the proof that none of it worked. And when people can't rattle you, they start trying to study you. They want to know how you got to this place of calm after all the chaos, how you're still soft after the damage, how you're still gracious after the disrespect, how you walk with grace instead of grudges. They don't realize your peace wasn't handed to you, it was earned. You had to fight for it. You had to cry for it. You had to unlearn toxic patterns, disconnect from drama, and cut cords that were draining your soul. You didn't choose peace because it was easy. You chose it because it was the only thing that didn't require you to betray yourself. And now, that very peace has become your power. You didn't scream your truth, you lived it. You didn't seek revenge. You let your healing speak for itself. And in that silence, you got the last word. Your peace exposed everything they tried to hide. And that's why they can't stop watching, because in a world addicted to chaos, your calm is revolutionary. Number 11. You're a threat because you don't need a throne. They assumed you'd be powerless without recognition, that without the spotlight, the platform, or the approval, you'd shrink into the background. But you didn't. You kept rising. You didn't chase a title. You didn't beg for a position, and that's exactly why you're such a threat. You never needed the throne to carry authority. You walk in it. You don't wait for applause to feel worthy. You don't wait for people to vote you in before you lead. You don't need the crown because you already carry the weight of one in how you think, how you move, how you treat people, and how you handle pressure. That's what makes them nervous, because titles can be stripped, positions can be taken, but presence, real presence, that can't be faked or removed. You carry an energy that speaks for itself. You command respect without demanding it. You shift the atmosphere without trying to dominate it. You influence people not because you're loud, but because you're rooted. And when someone like you shows up, someone who's solid without being flashy, grounded without being prideful, it shakes the ones who depend on external power to feel like somebody. They thought you needed validation to feel complete, but you built your identity in silence. You discovered your worth when nobody was clapping. You found your strength when nobody believed in you. And now that you've grown into it, you're untouchable, because your confidence doesn't come from a job, a relationship, a platform, or a following. It comes from knowing who you are without needing to prove it. That's what they don't understand. That's what they're watching. You're not trying to be crowned. You already know you're chosen, and your quiet authority speaks louder than any ceremony ever could. You didn't need to sit on a throne to own your kingdom. You became the throne, and that's why they're nervous. Because your power doesn't need to be announced, it just is. Number 12, they wanted you gone, now they want to know how you rose. They were so sure that pushing you out would be the end of your story. They whispered, plotted, and waited for you to fall apart. Some even celebrated prematurely, thinking they had finally silenced your potential. But you didn't fold. You didn't vanish. You rose, and not just quietly, but in a way that shattered every lie they told about you. That's what's got them watching now. Not with admiration, but with suspicion and disbelief. They didn't think someone like you, someone they worked overtime to destroy, could rebuild from nothing. But you didn't just rebuild. You created something that never existed before. From the ruins of their betrayal, you forged purpose. From the ashes of rejection, you lit a fire they can't put out, and now they're curious. How did you do it? How did you go from being the one they wrote off to the one they can't ignore? They're not watching because they support you. They're watching because they can't make sense of you. You were supposed to be the example of what happens when someone gets shut out. Instead, you became the example of what happens when someone taps into their higher self and refuses to give up. You didn't follow the traditional rules of success. You didn't network your way into rooms or beg to be seen. You just aligned with your purpose, healed, focused, and leveled up in silence. That's the part that's haunting them. Now they want your formula. They want to reverse engineer the rise they never believed was possible for you. But what they don't understand is that there was no formula. What you built came from spiritual downloads, deep introspection, and an unshakable belief that your life still mattered, even when nobody clapped. You rose because you stopped waiting for permission. They wanted you gone because your light exposed too much. But now they want access because your presence holds answers they can't find anywhere else. You are the contradiction that proves success isn't always loud, linear, or backed by approval. You're what happens when someone decides to rise anyway. And now, they can't stop watching, hoping to catch the secret in your steps, never realizing the real secret was who you became when they thought you were finished. Number 13. You became the teacher they never deserved. They tried everything to shut you down. They mocked your growth, minimized your voice, laughed at your pain, and dismissed your vision. They saw your wisdom as a threat, your truth as too raw, your insight as too much. But in their efforts to silence you, they did the exact opposite. They sharpened your voice, refined your message, and elevated your presence. Now, the very ones who called you crazy, too deep or too intense, are quietly studying your every move, desperate to absorb the truth they once ridiculed. You didn't set out to be a teacher. You were just trying to survive. You were just trying to make sense of the chaos, the betrayal, the spiritual warfare. But somewhere in the middle of the mess, you became wise, the type of wisdom that doesn't come from books or titles, but from breaking, healing, and coming back whole. You weren't trying to teach lessons. You became one. Now your life is the textbook. Your growth is the lecture. Your silence is the test. They watch you not because they're rooting for you, but because they need answers. Your evolution makes them uncomfortable, not because you boast, but because you reveal. You reveal where they gave up, where they faked it, where they took shortcuts. Every time you rise, you remind them of what they avoided within themselves. They thought you were easy to dismiss. They thought your voice had no value, but life proved otherwise. Your breakthrough is loud now, and it echoes in spaces they tried to keep you out of. They're watching from the sidelines, trying to mimic your glow, trying to quote your clarity, but they don't have the foundation to carry it. They want the fruits without the roots. But what you carry was paid for in full, through fire, loneliness, and resilience. And now, the irony is thick. You became the teacher they never respected, but now desperately need. You never tried to impress them, and that's what makes your impact cut deeper. You don't need a pulpit. You don't need their praise. Your life preaches by simply being, and your rise teaches lessons their egos are still too fragile to admit they needed to learn. Number 14, you made it, but you made it whole. You made it, but not the way they expected, not by pretending, not by performing, not by stepping on others to get ahead. You rose without losing your soul, and that's what has them stunned, because in their world, success almost always comes with a price. Compromise your values, fake your image, betray your truth, chase approval like currency. But you didn't do any of that. You took the long, hard, honest road and still made it. They don't get it. You didn't play the game, but you still won. You didn't shapeshift to fit into their molds. You didn't water down your essence to be palatable. You showed up raw, real, and ready, and somehow that was enough. That's what they can't explain. Because most people who rise either lose themselves in the climb or build a version of themselves that isn't even real. But you stayed grounded. You kept your integrity. You stayed you. And that level of authenticity at the top, it's rare. You didn't trade your purity for power. You discovered they could exist together. That's the part that's rewriting their entire belief system. Because they were taught, and even taught others, that in order to succeed, you have to lose something. That softness must be sacrificed. That empathy is weakness, that being real is naive. But you've become living proof that purity and power aren't opposites. They're amplifiers. And that truth is uncomfortable for people who gave up their essence just to get ahead. What they see in you is unsettling because it challenges everything they settled for. You made it, but you still have your light. You still have your heart. You still have your soul. You didn't become cold, arrogant, or manipulative to survive. You became deeper, clearer, and wiser. You are the version of success that they said didn't exist, a chosen one with both scars and sovereignty. Someone who has seen darkness but didn't let it live in them. Someone who was broken but didn't become bitter. Someone who was silenced but learned to speak with power. You didn't just arrive, you arrived whole. And in a world full of fragments and facades, that is what truly makes you untouchable. They thought they were burying you, but they were just planting you. They didn't realize that every rejection, every betrayal, every lie spoken over your name was adding pressure to a soul that was already chosen. You weren't just meant to survive. You were meant to become evidence. Evidence that you don't have to sell your soul to rise. Evidence that peace is power. Evidence that authenticity still disrupts everything built on performance and ego. You didn't just make it, you made it whole. And now your life is the very thing they can't stop analyzing. They watch you not because they understand you, but because they don't. Because you cracked a code they were told didn't exist. You rose from sabotage without revenge. You succeeded without imitation. You glowed without validation. You are a walking contradiction to their systems and a living revelation of what happens when spirit leads and ego dies. That's why they're studying you. That's why they're stuck in silent obsession. You broke free from generational traps, rewrote blueprints in real time, and chose healing over hate. You carry a frequency that can't be copied and a destiny that can't be touched. They can try to mimic your steps, but they'll never replicate your substance because it wasn't taught, it was forged. So keep moving like the anomaly you are. Keep speaking when led and staying silent when it's sacred. Keep shining without asking permission. You don't need their applause. You already have alignment. You don't need the crown. You already carry the kingdom within. And the next time you wonder why you're being watched so closely, remember, they tried to erase you. Now they can't stop trying to understand you. You are the blueprint. You are the shift. You are the prophecy they never saw coming. And you didn't just rise. You redefined what rising looks like. If this message stirred something in your spirit, if it made you reflect, remember, or even rise a little deeper into your own truth, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another word that was meant for you in divine timing. Like this video if it confirmed something your soul already knew. Drop a comment below and let your voice be heard. Your insight might be the medicine someone else needs right now. Share this with someone who's walking their silent path of becoming. Let them know they're not alone and they're not crazy for choosing peace, depth, and authenticity in a world full of noise. This isn't just a channel, it's a movement, a sanctuary for the chosen, the real, the resilient. So stay connected, stay aligned, and above all, stay true to who you are becoming. Because trust me, the world hasn't seen anything yet. God bless you.